Hey guys, just opening thoughts. Better than last week.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
But before we get to the actual episode discussion, we've got the preliminaries to get to. So who wants to tell us about our sponsor this week?
Why, I'd be happy to tell us about our sponsor. Our sponsor this week for the Walking Dead TV podcast is DCB Service. That's Discount Comic Book Service at dcbservice.com. And once again, DC is continuing the New 52 celebration where issue number 8, if you order all of them of the New 52, are 50% off. So this is the 8th month in a row they've been doing this, and I'm curious as to how long they'll be able to continue that. I'm guessing probably till issue 12 maybe, but it's a great deal if you're liking what they're doing with the New 52, and if you're getting most of the titles, adding a few more on there to get that 50% off discount is quite a steal. Also, DCB Service has going on Vertigo's 4 new number 2 books. You can get in a bundle for 75% off, so you get all 4 books for a total of $2.99. So Vertigo's got a new line of books they started with last month's previews that are coming out, and so they're really kind of pushing these hard. So they're definitely worth checking out. All new DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers related to the New 52 are all 50% off this month, which is a great bargain. And then all the other stuff is 45% off. Also, premiering this month is the new Shadow number 1 from Dynamite, which is 75% off. And there are 4 regular covers, which Dynamite loves to do, putting out massive covers. I'm sure since it's Dynamite, one of them will be drawn by Mr. Alex Ross. So you could technically get all 4 of those for the retail price of 1 book. Walking Dead related this month in the February previews is Walking Dead number 96. So they're fastly approaching issue number 100, and you can get that for 40% off, which is $1.79. So it's a great deal. And as always, if you're a first-time customer with DCB Service, please use the code WD8 you'll get an additional 8% off of your complete order. So some of these issues, they're 75% off or 50% off. You're looking at close to your total bill being almost 50% off, or for some of the books even greater with that extra 8% kicker. If you're a digital comic aficionado, you can head over to dcbservice.com and order through Comixology, and you can earn 5% of your purchase you can earn 5% of your Comixology orders off of DCB's as proper titles. So again, if you're ordering from Comixology anyway, you might want to just head over to DCB Service and help out the sponsorship by ordering digital comics through their site. So as always, we thank Discount Comic Book Service for their sponsorship of the Walking Dead TV podcast.
And I just want to add that issue number 96, Russ said, is being solicited. And I don't know if we talked about it at all last show, but issue number 97 is the beginning of something. A new story arc, something big is going down. One of the teaser images has a person holding a crossbow, and you can't see his face, and there's a lot of tattoos on the guy. Could be the debut of Daryl Dixon in the comics. Not the first time we thought that, but it is possible. So if you'd be interested in buying the comic, if they brought in Daryl Dixon, you should probably start looking around in issue 97 and upward. That'd be my guess.
I think you're right. I think the last one was a little questionable. I think it was a little hopeful when we saw that promo image. This one is a little more overt, in my opinion. So I'd really be surprised with this one if it didn't turn out to be Mr. Dixon.
Could be a red herring, but let's hope for the best.
Is it something to fear or no fear? What's the tagline of this thing that's starting at issue 97?
Something to fear. It is something to fear.
Very well. All right. Before we get into Trigger Finger, first thing I want to do is read a new iTunes review because we love those. We have a review from Claire, 4 out of 5 Busters for our show. She wants to know when Buster is making another appearance. Did I just say appearance? When Buster is making another appearance, she wants to know. We don't know. I don't think Buster's ever coming back.
Which is really sad.
Yeah. She says she really likes listening to our original insight that doesn't depend solely on what you know from comics. Great podcast. I'm addicted. So thank you, Claire. We appreciate it. We'll take all the iTunes reviews. Helps us get noticed and know that you're out there listening. So that's awesome. And we have a voicemail that's kind of been sitting around for a little bit. I think we forgot about it, and I think when the show, well, you know what, last week we just got totally thrown for a loop. We were missing some people last minute, and we forgot to play it. So I'm going to go ahead and play that one.
Hey guys, it's Brett again. You had mentioned in your episode last week that you thought it was really strange that Dale somehow deduces out of thin air that Shane sacrificed Otis. Well, I watched back through a few of the earlier episodes, and I actually found out that Shane totally gave it away at Otis's funeral. Funny enough, it actually seems like Dale figured it all out at the moment that Shane spilled the beans. Okay, so let me break it down here. Just before Shane and Otis head off to the high school, Rick lends his revolver to Otis, and then Otis says, "That's a fine weapon, Rick. I'll bring it back in good shape." So Otis has his hunting rifle and the revolver that Rick lent to him. Shane has his Glock and his shotgun. So that's 4 guns. 2 rifles, 2 pistols. Now, after Otis is dead and Shane is giving his eulogy at the funeral, he says, and I quote, "We were almost done, almost out of ammo. We were down to pistols by then." And then he goes on to say, he gave me his backpack, he shoved me ahead. "Run," he said. "I'll take the rear, I'll cover you." Okay, so at that moment, Dale's eyes shift around very quizzically, and very briefly, he cocks his head to the side and has this aha moment. You should really go check out that scene again. It's really funny. You can totally tell that he sees a hole in Shane's story. So you see, Otis and Shane, they actually went out with 4 guns, 2 rifles, 2 pistols, but Shane came back with 3. Everything but Otis's hunting rifle. So strangely, he somehow ended up with Rick's revolver. We see that Shane has his own pistol. It's a Glock. In some subsequent scenes, like the barn shootout or when he's with Andrea in the housing development. He uses his assault shotgun in other scenes, like this week's episode when he's looking for Laurie at the scene of the car accident. Rick obviously has his revolver back because that's the one he used to shoot Sophia. But the only reason that revolver even made it back was because Shane grabbed it off of Otis when he was struggling to get the backpack. Yet, he clearly says we were down to pistols, and he says that Otis would cover him. So if Otis is going to cover him and he doesn't have any rifle ammo left, if he didn't have Rick's revolver, then I guess he was going to punch the zombies or something like that. I don't know. There's obviously something really weird here that Shane somehow ends up with Otis's pistol. So anyways, nobody really seems to put those pieces together except for good old Dale. I guess the writers didn't really do a good job of making that hole in Shane's story very obvious to the viewers, but I definitely think it was intentional, and if you go back and you watch the episodes, it all makes sense.
Very interesting. I definitely did not catch all of that from Dale's look, and I didn't think to put any of that together, but it sounds like it makes sense.
I think the only thing you forgot to mention was, and the prosecution rests.
Yeah, that's a pretty good observation. I just more took it as Dale is suspicious in general, and like sometimes what people do, they start playing out scenarios in their head and working things out that way. So that's kind of the take I took on it. But I think that's some great analysis and some great digging.
I would agree with you guys in your assessment of his reasoning, but I think I tend to side more with Russell. I just think it was Dale just being suspicious of somebody he was already suspicious of to begin with, and his story sounded fishy, and maybe it's for the reasons that were just shared with us, but I think it was more of just Dale not liking Shane and wanting to find something wrong with his story.
So we thank Brett again for the voicemail. If anybody else would like to send their comments via voicemail, the phone number is 516-468-7912. And I believe we also got a couple of emails, didn't we, Brett?
Yeah, this is about the Nebraska episode. This is from Liz Giles. Just finished your Nebraska episode, and I must say, I felt all of your opinions were pretty spot on. I thought the mid-season premiere was going to be this action-packed hour and was left feeling only really amped because Rick shot those guys outright in the last 3 minutes of the show. I thought it was going to be another drawn-out discussion of how to merge camps and this or that, which is what Rick had done so far with everyone. Anyway, I love that the same Rick Grimes that cuffed Merle Dixon to the roof, no questions asked, showed up to take care of those 2 a-holes in the bar. Though I would have liked to have seen more Michael Raymond James in future episodes. He was one of the 2 guys, yes?
Yeah, Dave, I think.
He was, yeah, I think Dave.
Okay.
One.
I would like to see more of Michael Raymond James in future episodes, again, and writers killing off characters we don't even know. I love that they weren't alone, and now Rick, Glenn, and Herschel all have to deal with the rest of that group. I did say Daryl bashing on Twitter. Oh, she participated in Daryl bashing on Twitter, but upon reflection, I've realized you guys made some valid points about the unevenness of Daryl's character throughout the season. Though I think Mr. Norman Reedus is doing a fabulous job playing the rough around the edges guy, I agree that it seems as though AMC went from having him being too one-dimensional to giving him way too much of a range in the way his character behaves. Maybe that's what happens under those extenuating circumstances, but it's still kind of hard to keep up with. Anyways, much love to all you guys. I'm a huge fan of the show and look forward to next week. Hope all of you will be there. Thank you, Liz. And we have one more about Nebraska from Carlos Santos. Hi, love the podcast. I think you guys have the most professional Walking Dead podcast out there. Thank you very much for that comment. Having said that, I feel you guys missed the point concerning Daryl's conversation with Lori. She accused him of being selfish, which, when you think about it, is ludicrous, considering Daryl went through hell to find Sophia. He was annoyed, and I believe rightly so. What we have here, as usual, is Lori making poor judgment calls concerning a lot of things, like her complaining about looking for supplies on the highway, or commenting that she thought Carl was getting cold. It is the zombie apocalypse. Carl isn't going to have a normal life. I feel Lori was the problem in that scene with Daryl. That's my 2 cents, guys. Keep up the great work. I can see that. I mean, I still think Daryl was acting strangely, but, you know, having Lori come up to me and say dumb things would be annoying as well. So I get it.
Yeah, it's weird when these characters seem to like sweat the small stuff, to use a cliche. You know, you're like this person said, you're in the zombie apocalypse. You know, like, are we really gonna feel sorry for ourselves and bring up things like the kid is getting cold? And I don't know. Sometimes it just doesn't sit right with me. And I mean, Daryl, I think Russ might have said this to me in a chat or an email or something. Daryl's taking, you know, arrows in the leg and fighting off zombies. You know, he's like total badass, and now he's gonna feel bad because they don't appreciate him. Like, it just doesn't seem to match up.
Yeah, I crossed my memes, I guess, because I did the Daryl Dixon quote of "I used to be a badass until I got shot in the knee with a crossbow," which is for those people that play Skyrim, that's like one of the big internet memes for Skyrim. You walk up to a guy that used to be some adventurer in video game Skyrim, and he's like, "Well, I used to be an adventurer until I got shot in the knee." So it's like all over the internet. People plaster that comment over pictures of all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Very good.
Our friend Lucas King just posted in our Walking Dead podcast, and I got the email, which is why the only reason I know about it. But he says, "Getting caught up as we speak. Holy barn slaughtering goodness."
Yeah, Lucas is a few episodes behind, apparently.
Yeah, but it's fun to watch people's responses to older stuff that we've already seen.
Oh yeah, for sure. Are we done email wise?
For Nebraska, we've got one later about Triggerfinger, but let's hear from Jordan.
All right, Jordan, let's do it.
So Triggerfinger starts with Lori waking up in the car crash, or after the car crash she had last episode. And for me, at least, it wasn't immediately clear that it was Lori right in the beginning. I was kind of a little disoriented, but you quickly become aware that it is Lori. And there's a zombie pressing its face through the front glass of her car, which was gross. The skin is just ripping right off the face. She eventually gets out of the car. She gets rid of that zombie. Another one attacks her, and she shoots it, I believe, in the face. And then she makes her way into town.
The face ripping scene was awesome.
Yeah, big time.
And it totally made me forget like that it was just stupid that she even took the car, left, and flipped it and hit the zombie. Like, if that's what it brought, it was totally worth it, you know, getting you to that point.
that's what I thought exactly. Jordan, you brought it up too, and I thought the same thing. When they first showed Lori, I don't know if it was just the way her hair or the angle. It didn't look like her. It looked like a different person.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, but yeah, the whole face ripping off as that zombie went through the windshield was just one of the most awesome zombie scenes I think in the series so far. And to me, that's when I said, okay, we saw what we saw at the end of last episode. We're starting this with Lori, which is, in my book is kind of a downer. But to see a zombie that is so determined to get its prey literally rips its own face off coming through a glass windshield, I was like, okay, we're on an upswing here. We're definitely on an upswing.
And you know, I'm sorry, Jordan. There's so many zombie films at this point, and you know, books, and there's tons of zombie stuff out there. I've never seen that. Like, to me, it was a totally new idea and way to bring some zombie gore into the show. I mean, Jordan, you've seen Zordon. I almost call him Jordan.
Yes, I'm Zordon from the original Power Rangers show. I live in a big glass tube.
Hey, up yours, Zordon. You've seen a lot more of the zombie films than I have. Have you ever seen that or anything
No, I
similar
don't
to
think
that?
I've seen that specific trick before. It was definitely cool and brand new for me.
I wonder if that was a Nicotero thing or if it was a writer that came up with that idea.
From what I understand, they generally leave the specific gags up to Nicotero, especially because he's an executive producer now. I think he gets a lot more say into exactly how those things go. But after Lori makes her way to town, we catch back up with Rick, Herschel, and Glenn, who are still inside the bar, and they're about to leave when a group of people approach from outside. And these people are looking for Dave and Tony. We never actually see this group, at least not in the beginning. The entire scene is shot from inside the bar, which is a very cool choice. And the three of them are hiding behind the door and behind or underneath some windows, waiting for the group to go away. But the group actually comes up to one of the windows and asks if anyone's inside. And it was probably a mistake. Rick answers them, and soon they're in a bit of a firefight.
Yeah, who else yelled at the TV when he started talking?
Oh, me. I was totally with Herschel. You could see the look on Herschel's face when he
And I
spoke
thought
up.
Glenn was going to be the one to say something, and then we could at least be, well, okay, at least Glenn's a kid, but Rick should know better. That
Well,
was a stupid move.
let me just say this. I expected this from Rick before last episode. I thought last episode was going to be the turning point to badass Rick that is going to do whatever he has to do now to get things done. So I thought this was like a little bit of a step back. Like, he's really going to try to negotiate with these guys now. You know, I don't know.
I must be in the minority because I thought this was a continuation of Badass Rick. Because I thought at that point he kind of was confident in himself and feeling it. Because the tone of his voice. I mean, he yelled that out. He was very fierce in what he said. I think he was trying to scare these guys is to say, look, your guys drew on us, and even though they drew on us, we were still able to take both of them out easily. What do you think, we're going to do to you? And I think that was his way of, they're going to come in anyway. At least if I yell this out and assert my, kind of alpha male attitude, that I might be able to either throw him off guard or to get him to say, look, we're just going to cut our losses and get the hell out of here.
I just knew Glenn was going to bite it this episode. When he was leaning up against that door, I figured they'd start shooting and he would get killed from a shotgun blast or something through that door. He's holding the door open with his back. And when Rick started yelling, I thought, oh no, this is it. Glenn's going to bite it.
Oh, I thought the same thing, Brad. And even later on in the episode, too, especially because, look, we know what happens in the comic, but that has nothing to do with this. We also know how regular stories work. And when you've just set someone up that they're in love and that someone told them that they were in love with them, but they didn't reciprocate, it would not be that big of a stretch of the imagination to go, okay, that person's about to die. It's going to be a tragic ending. You're not going to see it coming. But because we know how stories work, definitely foreseeable. So I was kind of happy that they didn't go that route. And but I was definitely right there with you.
If this was still badass Rick, it was stupid badass Rick. There's a difference between stupid and being smart. And I don't think what he did, he might have been badass, but I don't think what he did was smart.
Yeah, maybe. But don't you think eventually, okay, it was all truncated because the walkers showed up and they just said, okay, we gotta bail. But don't you think eventually Rick knew, okay, they're gonna find us. They're gonna know we're here. Even if they have to do a building search. And it's like, okay, do we want to sit here and, hunker down and be afraid and not be able to make a getaway? Or worse, we're stuck here long enough that the rest of them wonder what happened to us and they send a party to come after them and then they get into trouble. I don't know. Maybe I read more into it. Maybe I'm being a little more on the Rick bandwagon than I should be. But I just really thought it was a good tactical move and a assertive move on Rick's part to do what he did.
I don't know. I thought it was inviting disaster. Sooner they were about to leave anyway, is the feeling I got. And then he yelled out, say they come inside. Say they didn't leave. Say they start coming inside. You wait for them to open the door and you pop them right in the head. You're right there behind the door. Why invite them to start shooting through the the door that you're leaning up against? I don't know.
Although, I think, didn't Glenn jump in front of the door and alert the guys that there was someone inside before Rick said anything? I think that option might have been taken away from Rick.
They tried to open the door, and then he shut it. And when they did that...
But he being Glenn, right?
Glenn, yeah. Glenn shut the door, and that's when the guys on the other side knew that somebody was in there. So at that point, and that was before Rick said anything. So at that point, they knew they were in there.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But still, I think Rick probably made the wrong decision by saying anything. They still could have tried something different.
Well,
that door was still an option to him,
Yeah, and he's giving away their location inside the place. They could all be loaded up in the back. They could be, in the basement if there is one. You know what I mean? Like, yelling out invites them to shoot through the front door because they can hear that you're right there. But whatever.
So back on the farm, the group figures out, through a series of conversations that Lori is no longer there. So Shane is kind of freaking out about that. Meanwhile, Carol goes and talks to Daryl. Carol follows Daryl, and she learns that he was the one who let Lori go into town alone. So she's kind of mad at him, and then he starts yelling at her. He mocks her for a while, and she kind of just stands there and takes it. We know from the history of the show that she is used to dealing with extremely verbally abusive men, and she stands there and takes everything he throws her way.
Yeah, the end of this exchange felt weird, didn't it? Like, I felt like I was missing the clip where she fired back at him and, made him see the light or something.
I was kind of waiting for her to go, is that it? Did you get out of your system? Not even something like yelling back at him, but just pointing out that she was well aware of what he was doing, and, he couldn't hurt her with verbally anymore. It was out of his hands.
I thought the same thing, Jordan. I expected her to say, are you finished?
One of the things, and I was watching the Talking Dead afterwards, and one of the things Chris Hardwick mentioned, and this is something that I thought for, I guess, a couple episodes now, and it was kind of cool to have validation a little bit by him saying the same thing, but I too kind of think that Carol and Daryl are 2 seconds away from just going from this weird back and forth to just completely making out with each other. There's just this weird, the way that they interact with each other and the way that she looks at him and the way that he kind of is so flippant with her. I just, at the back of my head, I just keep thinking the same thing. I'm glad they don't because that would be completely cliched, but it still kind of lingers in the back of my brain that it's dude, it seems like they're about 3 seconds away from just throwing down right here. So just like I said, it's just kind of funny to hear that from. So I don't know if you guys kind of get the same tension going on or the same vibe going on.
No, definitely. I wouldn't want to make gross overgeneralizations to a subject I'm not that personally familiar with, but from what I understand, or at least from what we see in the show, yes, Ed, your husband Ed, was an extremely abusive man, but she stayed with him. And there are some people that even though they are abused, I don't want to say they get used to it, but at a certain point, it's something that they live with and something that they're used to and out. So if that's not happening to her, she's not sure what to do. But at least in this situation, she's used to it. And if she stayed with her husband that long, and they had at least one kid together, presumably that kind of energy could transfer into another type, like you're saying.
But I don't think that she feels the same way. I think A, she's a little more empowered, just in general. I think she's changed as a person. But 2, I don't think she sees Daryl as that kind of person. I almost think, like you guys were saying, she's at the point now where she knows Daryl's blowing off steam, and Daryl is just the way he is. That he's not abusive. That he would never be abusive to her. And that I too was kind of waiting, other than to see if they would just start making out with each other. But like you guys were saying, the whole, okay, are you done yet? Are you finished? Are you through? Which is that's the kind of the confidence she was throwing out there, and that's something she would never do with Ed. So I think that was just kind of a unique situation for her. And knowing Daryl the way she does and has gotten to know him, and the dynamics of her personality, going what she's been through, have changed. I don't see the same situation that she had with Ed.
Why do you guys think Daryl's being so mean to her? Is he just frustrated and you take it out on the ones you love? Is that all it is?
I think that Daryl is more affected by Sophia's death than probably anyone else. I think there's something going on with him that he was so invested in finding her, and that was his mission. And I think maybe he even saw that as his redemption as a person, his way of breaking free of his brother and whatever probably horrible childhood he went through, that he could be kind of the hero for this little girl that maybe nobody was to him. And I think now that she's dead, I think it kind of snapped him back to the reality of it's every man for themselves. This is all just a bunch of crazy nonsense. I'm not sticking my neck out for anybody, and I'm just gonna, in order to not get invested in anybody else again, he doesn't want to be that vulnerable again. So it's I'm gonna push everybody away. I'm gonna go off and do my own thing. I'm gonna whittle, make stakes out of wood. I'm gonna hang stuff up on a line. All that kind of stuff to push everybody away, so he doesn't get that investment in another person like he did with Sophia, and for him to be let down. That's kind of how I take it.
Yeah, and I think that's all very astute, observations. I think that's what they're going for. But, again, it lasted 20 minutes. And then the next morning on the show, he's back with the group again. And I think the only problem I have with it this time is we didn't get that moment at the end of the fight with Carol to get the realization from Daryl. You know what I mean? All right, I'm being a jerk. She's right. We didn't get that ending. And then all of a sudden the next morning he's back and he gives her a little nod and everything's fine again.
It's almost like maybe there's a scene missing, exactly like you're saying, John, that, either maybe they filmed it or maybe they intended it to be in there and they chopped it for time, and so it doesn't make sense. But yeah, it just seems like a strange leap. I thought the same thing. When he's all geared up and ready to roll with the crossbow and the whole thing, it was like, okay, a minute ago you were Mr. Solo, and now you're ready to, get back up on the horse again. So
and that was really weird because that came before he went inside and gave Carol the nod.
Right.
So you got him geared up and part of the group, and you're like, what the heck is going on here? And then, he comes in and they give each other the mental high five, and everything's all right again. So it's all right. I'd rather have Daryl with the group than sulking in his own tent, so I'll take it.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. So one other important piece of information that came out of that scene is, as we saw last week, Laurie wanted Carol to go into town and get Rick. So now he's communicated that information to Carol, and she tells Shane that's most likely that Laurie went into town to look for Rick, and so Shane goes out to find her. And surprisingly, he finds her very quickly. I was kind of waiting for it to be a whole other, where's Laurie thing now instead of where's Sophia. Thankfully, it did not go down that road. No pun intended by using the word road. But he finds her on the road. He tells her that Rick is already back because she's not interested in coming back until Rick is. And he brings her back where she is very upset to find out that Rick is not there. And then Shane spills the beans in front of everybody that she is pregnant. And Carl says he wants to name the baby Sophia. It turns out to be a girl, which is an interesting little nod. I hope they go that route.
Creepy.
If it doesn't, well, creepy, but the type of thing that I could see a kid like that saying.
I was like, man, that is so weird.
I didn't think it was weird. I thought it was sweet.
I'm just not naming my kid after a dead girl.
Like, if Daryl went, you should name her after Sophia. That would be creepy. Carl saying it, I think it was cute too. But anyway, so at that point, Shane and Laurie have a private talk about everything that's gone on between them. And Shane says he doesn't believe it was like a little short-term thing. He says they're meant to be together, and he thinks she knows it too. He thinks the baby's hers, and we can quickly see that things are not going to end well. Back in the town and inside the bar, Rick, Glenn, and Herschel are trying to decide how they're going to escape. So Herschel and Glenn go to the back so they can check to see if anyone's back there. Herschel covers Glenn, and Glenn takes a shotgun. So Glenn goes outside, and he tries to make a little bit of a run for it. Gunfire starts, and he hunkers down behind a dumpster to the point where Herschel actually thinks he's dead. Herschel can see one of the other guys, and this Herschel shoots the other guy, right? Who's coming towards him?
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, so Herschel shoots the guy who quickly gets swarmed by zombies, and we get some more face-ripping action for the second time in the episode, which is pretty gross. And actually, one of the first times in the show we've actually seen someone bitten by a zombie. At least certainly this season, I think. For the most part, it's happened off-screen otherwise.
Or far away.
Yeah, this was a really good shot. So then Rick joins them because he hears all the gunfire, and he goes to check and see if Glenn is alive. And this was another cool badass shot where Rick leaves the building holding two guns. He's holding a shotgun in one hand and a pistol in the other, pointing them in two separate directions, and it was like an overhead kind of Dutch angle. I thought that was a very cool shot. But so the three of them are once again reunited, and they're going to make a run for the car when the zombies start swarming the other group, Tony and Dave's friends, and they decided to hightail it. One of the guys on the roof jumps down. He's trying to jump to the car, but instead he gets stuck with he gets stuck on a fence with one of the fence posts. The metal fence post kind of stuck right through his leg, and he's abandoned by his own people. So Rick, Herschel, and Glenn go over, and they first are going to amputate, but then they're being swarmed by the zombies. They're running out of bullets. So Rick just grabs the kid's leg, pushes it right up off the pole, ripping a big chunk out of it, and that ends that particular scene.
I thought the time period of Herschel deciding whether he was going to amputate went on too long. Like, dude, there are zombies coming from every open spot all around us. You do not have the time to amputate a leg with a pocket knife. Like, it just seemed very clear to me that they weren't going to have enough time. And
he wanted the axe from the car, didn't he? Didn't he want a hatchet or something?
He wanted it, right? But then they couldn't get to the car. He asked for a hacksaw, I think, first, right? Or
I said hatchet.
No, hatchet, yeah.
Okay, either way, they couldn't get it, obviously. And Herschel's still kind of like tying his shirt up and lining that leg up with his little knife that Rick ends up giving him. And it's like, I don't know, to me it was like no chance, dude. Like, how long would it take to hack through a leg bone with that knife? I mean,
7 hours.
right? So I thought Herschel was either going to shoot the guy in the head or like stab him in the neck or something and just put him out of his misery, and they would get out of there.
Right. And this kid is Randall, and he's played by Michael, I don't know if it's Zegan or Zagan, but Z-E-G-N. He was actually on Rescue Me since the beginning, I think, all 6 seasons of the show. He played Tommy Adams' nephew on the show. And it was a pretty good part up until the end. I don't want to spoil the show, but yeah, they took that character in weird places. But so it was nice to see another recognizable, or at least semi-recognizable actor, and I'm feeling he'll be around for a few episodes.
It's funny, again, going back to The Talking Dead, apparently he and John Bernthal were college buddies, and so he didn't realize...
Wait, Michael Zegan and John Bernthal?
The guy that was that was the guy that had his leg stuck, right?
Yeah, but I would have assumed from looking at them that they were a good 10-15 years age difference.
See, that's what I thought too. But in the Talking Dead, they they have the blurb up there that they were college buddies, and Bernthal didn't know that he was even hired to work until they both actually showed up on the set.
Huh.
So yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, man, Bernthal looks like he's a little older than this dude. This dude looked like really young, but
yeah.
One of the things that I thought was interesting with that whole scene was I agree that it was like completely unrealistic that he was going to hack a leg off with a pocket knife. But one of the things that scene did really well was kind of build tension between Glenn, screaming and shouting that they don't have time, and Rick telling him hurry up, and Herschel kind of scrambling to try and get this done. And you can see the zombies in the background, coming up and them taking shots at everybody. I just thought that was a really cool tension builder that we haven't really kind of seen that level of tension build, the zombie tension build. I mean, we got it a little bit with the last episode of the bar. That was a different kind of tension. It was a more subtle tension, but this was, kind of high intensity thing going on. So I thought that was cool because the whole time I'm like, what are they going to do? Are they going to leave him? Are they going to shoot him in the head? Are they going to, grab something and rip his leg off? Are they going to just, find a way to get? I mean, it was just like, all this stuff is going through my head while everything's racing towards him, and I just thought that was, really well done scene.
Oh, definitely. And that ripping sound of his leg getting pulled off was just awesomely gross. I did a little research. John Bernthal is 35. Both of these people went to Skidmore College at one point. So either Michael Zegan is older than he looks considerably, or he went to college early, or John Bernthal went to college late, or both. But it is still kind of I am greatly surprised by that little bit of trivia.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a good actor from Rescue Me for sure. Like I said, until they did weird things with his character, which is still writing things, but he acted all of it beginning to end very well.
I haven't been grossed out by many things on the show, like literally like disgusted by anything except when Rick lifted that guy's leg up off of the fence post. That was just like you said, it was the sounds, and it was horrible.
But that was another great Rick moment because it was like, okay, I'm done. If we're taking this guy, then we're just gonna have to man up. And he just lifts his leg up and rips it off the thing. I was just like, okay, more. I like the fact that I really felt that Rick had turned a page and that it wasn't like, well, he kind of did and now he's back to kind of being a little mamby-pamby. I like that it was more of the same and that he kept that kept it going.
Now, one thing that I heard a couple times on Twitter, maybe on Facebook as well, was did you guys feel cheated that we didn't get to see them escape that situation? That we went from Rick pulling the leg up off, and then the next time we see them is returning on the truck.
I didn't feel cheated at all.
Yeah, it didn't. Yeah, I didn't
right there. All they had to do was run over to it and drive away.
Yeah, I guess some people were saying that the way they were shooting all of those zombies coming from all different directions, that it would have had to be some like great escape situation.
Now, just judging from this one particular scene, because we do see Randall later, but he's comatose at the time. Now, we don't know too much about this guy in particular. We know he was shooting at them. We know he's definitely part of this other group. We don't know that he's necessarily a bad guy. I mean, I kind of get the same feeling with him that I did last year with our friend from the Vatos. But you certainly feel bad for the kid, at least at the point when he's pleading for his life with his leg impaled on the fence. I mean, did you guys think you got a read on this character at all, or at least a read that our character should have gotten from him?
I don't know. I just get the feeling it's going to bite them in the behind. Partly because that's Shane's reaction to it. I think Shane is right a lot on purpose so that we question Rick.
Definitely.
So I could see them sending this kid on their way, and then he goes back to his people, and they invade the farm or something. Like, I just see that happening. I doubt it will, but that's the vibe I got.
I'm frankly surprised that Rick didn't just shoot him in the head. That would have been a more of a Rick moment that would follow last week's episode than taking pity on him and bringing him with him.
Even just as an act of mercy,
I think it was because of his age. I think, because like Rick said, he's like, he's just a kid, and I think he has a soft spot. I think Rick is thinking, a very young person doesn't have this, maybe I don't know, I think he was just trying to rationalize it out, or maybe he just done enough killing for that day. Maybe he was just trying to, maybe he figured that it'd be a way to send a message, they heal this guy up and send him on his way, that it would teach, if this guy ever went back to whoever his people were, that this guy would be able to tell him, hey, one of two things, either A, these people aren't such bad people, or B, you don't want to mess with them because they could have easily just popped me in the head, they're heavily armed, they're well taken care of wherever they are, because obviously he's blindfolded, so you'll be able to tell them. But I don't know. I guess I'm not clear on what exactly Rick's motivation was, but I think a lot of it has to do with his perceived age of this kid.
If I had to guess, I have a feeling this kid turns out to be not that bad, but his friends come looking for him anyway, and then that's when everything hits the fan. Or at least that's how I hope, because I like the actor. Seems like a nice guy.
Could be.
So once they get back to the camp, Herschel tries to operate on the kid's leg and says it's going to be damaged and he won't be able to be up and about for like a week or so, but he should be okay. And Beth is still in her coma type thing.
What do you guys making of that right now? Do you still? I think Jordan, you weren't around, and Russ, neither were you. I think we were discussing last week that we figured that she got scratched or something in that scene when the dead ones coming out of the barn were clawing at her.
Yeah.
But I don't see a fever. I'm trying to remember like when it happened to Jim. Right? Jim had a bite or a scratch or whatever it was in the first season, and he had like that crazy fever, and he was talking kind of ridiculous and acting weird and stuff. So we really have no precedent for somebody going into a coma from a bite.
Yeah, I think if she was going to be zombified, it would happen by now. I think it's more just shock or some plot contrivance to have them have to go get Herschel from the bar.
I'm not sure what to make of the whole Beth thing, because I don't know if maybe it's just a plot device, just a way for them to have time to talk about